Hey guys, it's Captain Forest here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over both these combatants to see who would win, more often not, in an equal stats situation. Deku from Myheroacademia versus Rocklee from Naruto. Now, if you guys are new to my channel, please leave a like, comment down below, and of course, subscribe for further content. Also, huge shout out to the Coffee Shop gang. They all make awesome content. I will leave links in the description to their channels. Also, shouts to HQ Squad, they also make awesome content too. They were a huge help in this video. Shoutouts to Combat and Phoenix for helping me with both sections. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, start with Deku and see what he brings to the table. So I'll start with his best attribute, his intelligence. Now during a fill-in attack, Deku was able to figure out that everyone was split up randomly with no regard for their powers along with their experience, advantages and counterattacks with his own strategy. Deku was able to predict Mirio's quirk style that requires unpredictable phasing up and down through the ground by witnessing it briefly moments ago. It's also his natural nature as a nerd to be reading his opponent's movements and attributes via taking notes and then preparing for their counterattack. Deku is even shown to predict extremely agile and faster opponents like Gran Torino. He was able to trap Muscular Man in a lock to immobilize his speed advantage so he could get a hit in. He was able to keep Shigaraki airborne using a variety of his quirks simultaneously at the same time to press his advantage even further. Deku has analyzed weak spots in Muscular Man's style and exploits it. Now for Deku's quirk, called One for All, a power that, like the Avatar state, it basically increases all of his stats by gaining 6 more quirks from past users. Now of course with equal stats, those amplifications of AP and speed will not be included, they'll be completely invalid. But regardless, his main power, he uses it to create massive shockwaves to overwhelm his opponents at a distance, and uses this to give himself more time to prep and think against his opponent in order to come up with another strategy and a tactic in combat. Deku can use these compressed air blasts with great accuracy as well. This also bends into his endurance as well, since One for All breaks Deku's body, both internally and physically, like organs and bones, which Deku trains himself to minimize the damage and fight with sheer willpower. Now for his next quirk, Black Whip, he uses this ability to restrain physically comparable characters like Shigaraki in place, so he can lay the smackdown on them. He can even use it from his mouth, just in case his arms and legs are too damaged. Moving on, his next ability called Float, which makes him float in the air. After training with it, he gains the ability to fly. And Deku's next quirk works like Danger Sense, so it basically gives him a form of precognition and allows him to detect oncoming threats in combat. And his next quirk is called Smokescreen. The ability is used mostly to distract foes so Deku can get an opening on them. Now for his final quirk ability, for Jin, this ability allows him to use high amounts of his power while at the same time conserving energy for better efficiency in combat. Now for his Hax Resistances. 9 tried to steal Deku's quirks, but the past users inside prevented it and blocked it out since there were too many users for him to steal. Deku has also resisted mind control. He was able to break free from Shinso's brainwashed quirk due to the past user's consciousness snapping him out of it. Now moving on to gear and equipment, Deku and his costume is suited with a variety of gear to aid him, such as a gas mask to counter gaseous threats. The mild gauntlets allow him to further utilize his capabilities of his quirk without injuring himself, along with better energy efficiency. And finally, his Iron Souls add extra damage to his kicks. So that's going to round up the symbol of peace, Izuku Midoriya. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Rocklee. Okay, so starting off with the hacks, we'll be going over the 8th inner gates. The first inner gate, the Gate of Opening, is a taijutsu move that allows Lee to perform the front lotus, using this to kick the target in the air and come up behind to immobilize the target by wrapping bandages around their whole body before diving them down headfirst into the ground. The usage of the second gate, the Gate of Healing, allows Lee to regain all his stamina back after becoming severely exhausted at his battle against Gaara. The third gate, the Gate of Life, is essentially similar to the first gate, but in this one, Lee's physical appearance changes somewhat. He can perform the reverse lotus a technique similar to the front lotus, but this one allows Lee to seemingly be able to use his bandages better to immobilize the target before hitting them hard enough to plummet against the ground. The sixth gate, the Gate of Joy, gives the user an aura surrounding their bodies from head to toe. The power that emanates is enough to displace the surrounding bodies of water. This gate allows them to perform Morning Peacock, a technique that has Lee move his fists so fast that the friction in the air produces flames. Lee has incredible willpower even after his muscles have been torn apart, his limbs suffering from compound fractures, his torn limb and leg suffering implosion from Gaara's sand, his spine having bone fragments. With his sheer force of willpower, he was still able to get up and was ready to fight. Lee has resistance to sound/vibration manipulation. When coming into contact with a sound ninja's ninjutsu, it causes his left eardrum to burst and messes up his senses of balance, but was still able to fight on. Lee is able to breathe underwater for an unknown amount of time. Lee is also a master at taijutsu, otherwise known as hand-to-hand combat, because of the fact that he isn't capable of performing ninjutsu and genjutsu. Taijutsu was the only thing that Lee has a special field in. Because of this, he was even capable of unlocking and mastering six inner gates, which is impressive, as even Kakashi stated it was extremely difficult to unlock even just one gate alone. Last but not least is his Drunken Fist style. By drinking a bottle of alcohol, Lee becomes drunk to the point that his fighting style completely changes, so much so that it makes his movements become extremely unpredictable even to the likes of Kimimaro. So that's going to round up Lee. I'm going to go ahead and move on to see who would win, more often not in an equal stat situation, Deku or Rock Lee. So looking over both these combatants and seeing what they bring to the table, I think the biggest portion and the biggest critical part of this video would be the skill aspect, the observational skills and the tactical prowess that both these characters have shown in combat. Now, Deku has his advantages, so of course he has his information analysis. He likes to look at his opponent, observe them, read them, and come up with tactics and ways to get around them to defeat them, and just come up with different ways to finesse his opponents. And of course he does have his other quirks too, which could also help in combat, especially with the whip and his general raw attacks and sound-based attacks, especially if he performs one of his flicks where he imbues energy into his fingers and starts like creating like little pockets of blasts of wind. That could be a good win con as well. But for Rock Lee, I think where Rock Lee shines like most is the skill department. I think Rock Lee is vastly above Deku when it comes to skill. He's more skilled than Deku. I think Rock Lee would be able to get around of some of Deku's quirks. Since it's equal stats, Rock Lee won't have to worry about stat amps, or like, since that would be completely invalid in this fight. So Deku is a little bit limited. In fact, both of them are limited, since they won't get any amplifications off their activations, but they will get special abilities that will apply to those hexes. For example, with Rock Lee activating and entering into the gates, and of course you have Deku being able to use his different quirks. Now, I definitely think that if Rock Lee enters into some of those gates, especially with the hidden lotus, reverse lotus, and all that good jazz entwined with skill, I think that's gonna pretty much just out finesse and beat Deku. Yes, granted, Deku has observational skills, but when it's one thing to observe someone, but if you're unable to actually compete in that combat situation and deal with the skill gap, your observational skills are pretty useless if it comes to a more practical situation. And because of the skill edge, I do lean a bit more so with Rock Lee. I think if it came down to skill, I think he'd be able to skillfully avoid a lot of Deku's attacks, especially the whip. In fact, he'd use the whip against him, or he'd just use his own bandages to tag Deku, and then you just pretty much beat him and then just incapacitate him and hit him with the hidden lotus. So more often than not, I have to give this victory to Rock Lee. Way more skilled, and just has better overall ways to deal with Deku. That's pretty much it for the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you guys like, comment down below, and subscribe if you guys enjoy my content. But yes, it's been real. I'll see you guys in the next one.